Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you're all having a good day. In today's episode, I've decided that we should get some more beacons. I've left one permanently over at the Ocean Monument where my Guardian farm now is, and while I think it's a good thing to have the beacon over there permanently, I naturally want some more beacons so that I can take them elsewhere, do some haste mining, even set up other areas where we can have other status effects applied to us, and that's going to require us to fight the Wither a few more times. You don't have to just have one beacon in the world, you can have as many as you want, as long as you are prepared to fight the Wither. And so I have done a little bit of Nether Fortress raiding. On a recent live stream, I applied Sharpness 5, finally upgraded from Sharpness 4, and upgraded Looting 2 to Looting 3. So my Netherite sword is now a Wither skeleton killing machine and is able to farm Wither skeleton skulls with a little bit more reliability. I managed to get these 9 skulls in the space of about 40 minutes on a live stream, so it really didn't take all that long. Just chugged a couple of fire resistance potions to defend myself against the blazes in that soul sand Nether Fortress, and we are all set to fight 3 withers in this episode. But we're not just going to fight them on the surface like I did last time. Fun though that is as a challenge, I feel like once you start farming beacons, once you start fighting the Wither multiple times, you start to want a little easier way of taking care of it. It's almost like an obligation that you have to fulfill rather than being a challenge, right? And once you've done the boss fight a couple of times, you kind of think, is there an easy way to do this? Well, thankfully there is. In fact, there are several easy ways to fight the Wither, and I'm going to explain 3 of them, probably the most common 3, in today's episode. The first thing I'm going to do actually is return to my enchanting setup up here and see if there is a sword that we can enchant with Smite, because the Wither is technically an undead mob, and Smite is the enchantment which will deal additional damage to undead mobs. So let's see if we got definitely Smite books in here. I wonder if we have a Smite 5 anywhere. No, it doesn't look like it. We have Bane of Arthropods 5, but we don't have Smite 5. Well, we could still try and get it out of some of the books on the enchantment table, but I think maybe a fresh diamond sword is a good place to begin. Or did we get Smite on one of the swords that I brought back from the end cities? Nope. We got Smite 3 on that one, but it looks like the rest of them also had Bane of Arthropods, which is pretty funny, actually. Now that I think about it, though, my axe doesn't have any sharpness or smite enchantments on it, and it is possible to add the sharpness or smite enchantments to an axe because axes can be legitimately used as weapons. Axes also do the highest base damage of any weapon. The only reason this sword has a higher attack damage is because we have sharpness 5 on it. So if we added smite to this, it would be possible to deal enormous damage to undead mobs like the Wither. So if we put the Smite 3 book that I had somewhere in here on this axe, it would do pretty decent damage, but I think we can go a little bit further than that. Let's see if we can roll the enchantment table a few times until we get a Smite 4 or Smite 5 book coming up. There we go, Smite 4 is now coming up here as a level 30 enchant, so all I need to do is a quick visit to the Guardian farm, and we should be able to get that enchanted book. In fact, while I'm there, I might as well set up a whole new enchantment table. Considering that we're going to be getting most of our XP levels from there for now on, it makes sense to have the enchanting setup right there as well. It feels kind of silly doing this right after I spent so much time decorating this little room, but hey, we can always expand it, right? Alright, there we go, got a little enchanting nook in there now. We could even light it up with a sea lantern instead of using a torch. That seems like the right thing to do. There we go, very nice. Let's see if we can get some level 30 enchants from that. We can, perfect. And we should be able to get 30 levels very easily here, with just a couple more swings of the sword. Yep, there we go. Alright, so let's get that Smite 4 book, and I should probably bring an anvil down here as well. And a couple of junk enchants later, another Smite 4 book is coming up, so we can combine those to get Smite 5, and there we go, another level 30 enchant, another Smite 4 book, and hopefully enough levels left to combine these and add them to this axe. It's going to take 5 levels to do that, and 7 levels to add it to the axe. There we go, so the axe can have Smite 5. And with this new weapon in hand, it is time to go and fight our first of 3 withers, which we're going to do underground. Now you can dig a tunnel for this yourself, but I've found that one of the best places to do this if you've already got a few of these around is any abandoned strip mines or branch mines that you've used in the past. Usually these will already have a long, narrow tunnel that you've dug out, and this is the ideal environment for fighting the Wither because you can back off down the tunnel in order to avoid its projectiles. You may want to listen out for underground lava lakes around you just in case the Wither might blast its way into one of those, but for the most part, tunnels like this should be a relatively safe environment to stage the fight. So at the end here, we're going to dig out a nice little 3x3 area to make sure that we can build up the frame that you need to summon the Wither. We'll probably block off these tunnels a little bit just so the Wither isn't tempted to go down either of these, but that should be fine. We'll set up our T-shape of soul sand right here, and we'll pop on the 3 Wither skeleton skulls, and the Wither fight should begin. Now we just need to run to a relatively safe distance away in the tunnel to avoid the initial explosion, and once the Wither spawns, we're going to shoot at it with the bow first, since that'll be able to deal a decent amount of damage from range, and the Wither will try and make its way towards us, but we'll just get stuck on the rocks in the tunnel and have to break those blocks in order to get to us. We're already dealing pretty decent damage to the Wither just with the arrows, and when we see that glow of armor appear around it, we know that it's in melee only mode. At this point, we just step in, deal a couple of even hits to the Wither, and back off every time it breaks another set of blocks, and just like that, we have killed the Wither very, very easily, within a matter of seconds, with no damage to us and only minimal damage to the environment around us. The Wither has destroyed a ton of blocks nearby, but we're at bedrock level, so it could not go down any further than this. It's even exposed a few more ores and broken some of those blocks for us, although it's worth bearing in mind that the Wither's projectiles are explosive, and explosions like that can destroy blocks and items that are dropped on the ground. So while this is a fun way to explore a branch mining strategy, it's potentially going to destroy more of the resources than you would like it to. The Nether Star, on the other hand, it is not going to destroy, because the Nether Star has the unique property of being immune to explosion damage when it is dropped on the ground as an item. So TNT, Wither, projectiles, anything like that is not going to blow up this item when it is dropped on the ground. So even if a projectile is still headed in your direction after the Wither has dropped, it is going to be perfectly safe from the explosions of that projectile and allow you to claim it to craft another beacon. You see how easy that was? That was an absolute piece of cake. But what if I told you there was another way we could fight the Wither, which wouldn't even involve the player lifting a finger? For this method, we're going to need iron blocks in multiples of 4, and we're also going to need some carved pumpkins. I'm going to carve the pumpkins beforehand, since it's easier this way, just right-clicking on each of those with the shears, and we'll bring the carved pumpkins with us and return to that same mine where we fought Wither number 1. We're going to head down to the end here, set up the T-shape of soul sand for the Wither skulls to sit on, and we're going to place a couple of those, but we're not going to completely build the Wither quite yet, because further down this little corridor that has been dug out here, we're going to set up a few friends to protect us. You're probably used to seeing iron golems patrolling around villages protecting the inhabitants, or even dying so that you can generate iron for your iron farm. But those are all naturally spawned iron golems, and in this case, with a T-shape of iron blocks and a carved pumpkin on top, maybe not on the side, we don't want this thing to be a hunchback, there we go, you can create your own iron golems, getting you the hired help advancement. And the difference between these iron golems and village iron golems is that if they take any damage from the player, they're not going to react to you. They're simply going to stand there and take a punch. But when it comes to hostile mobs, they're still going to respond in exactly the same way. So if we create a bunch of iron golems to help us defend against the Wither, they are simply going to attack the Wither as soon as it spawns. So I'm going to generate a few of them right here, and if we generate them too close to the Wither, of course, they are going to be affected by the Wither's initial explosion, so we probably want to set them a couple of blocks back here in the tunnel. But once we got a few of these, we can go in and place our third Wither skeleton skull, then back away to a safe distance behind the iron golems. Oh, and of course I'm placing the heads in all sorts of stupid places now. Anyway, as I was saying, we can spawn the Wither in, the iron golems will rush in to attack it, they're already trying to take shots at it even though it's still charging up and is impervious to damage, but from this point onwards, watch the Wither's health bar as the iron golems try to fight it. Now, unfortunately for the iron golems, the Wither has the advantage of being able to fly upwards, and so it looks like a couple of them are having a hard time reaching it, but as the Wither deals damage, it is taking a pretty significant amount of damage as well, and oh, unfortunately it looks like it has taken out the last of our iron golems. So as always with this method, we should be prepared to take the Wither on ourselves. Oh, and we took a hit there. That was kind of a surprise. But once again, the tunnel is here to help us take out the rest of the Wither. So perhaps my original explanation of not having to lift a finger might have been a little bit of an exaggeration, but in this case, the iron golems really helped with that first phase. And from the iron golem's sacrifice, we not only get some poppies and some iron, but we also picked up some Wither roses there. We've mentioned this in a previous episode, but didn't get to see the effect in action. When the Wither kills a mob, the mob drops a Wither rose in addition to any other drops it might have. And the Wither roses are a pretty unique flower. They can actually inflict the Wither effect, so we have to be a little bit careful where we plant these. But anyway, back to the iron golems. If they hadn't been been damaged so much by the Wither's initial explosion, and if the Wither hadn't managed to gain the high ground over here and put itself out of reach of the iron golems, then they would have very easily taken down the Wither. In fact, you can combine iron golems with our third method of fighting the Wither easily, and the Wither won't be able to retaliate at all, which will make the fight trivial. But the final method we're going to explore today makes the fight trivial regardless, because it basically immobilizes the Wither and prevents it from attacking the player to any significant degree. For this method, we're going to return to our storage here, grab 4 blocks of obsidian, and return to the end dimension. And back here in the end dimension, I should also point out that this method also assumes that you've already fought and killed the ender dragon and that there isn't still an ender dragon active in this dimension. You can, of course, respawn it anytime you want to, but for the purposes of this, it's probably not a great idea to have the ender dragon around, because we're going to make use of the central end portal, which has a floor made out of bedrock. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to dig out a 5x5 area so we can see the exact footprint of the end return portal. So from under this, it's possible to see that this thing resembles basically a large fat plus shape with 5 blocks across the center and obviously these corner blocks missing. But right here in the center is where we want to be. We need to make sure that we are dead center on each of these 2 sides. We're going to dig out the block directly below us and place a block of obsidian there. And then adjacent to that, we're going to dig out another 3 blocks on which we're going to place the other pieces of soul sand. This is going to be our template for spawning in the Wither. And bear in mind that the maximum height you can allow this is 2 blocks. If you make it any lower than that, the Wither is going to be able to escape from underneath the bedrock of the portal here. If you make it 1 block higher than this, the Wither will still be trapped, but some of its explosive projectiles will actually go through the portal to return to the overworld and will start blowing up stuff around your world's spawn point. So usually a good idea to avoid that and make sure that this area here is only 2 blocks tall. Now on top of this, we're going to make that T-shape of soul sand flat, because it's a weird thing, but you can do this. It is possible to spawn the Wither sideways, like so. And once we've done that, we need to back away, because once again, the Wither's initial explosion will be very damaging. We're going to ready some sort of weapon that will help us against the Wither, but the Wither is not going to be able to escape from this, because the bedrock above it and the obsidian below it are 2 impenetrable barriers for the types of attacks that the Wither currently uses. And at this point, it's safe for me to come in here with the axe. I can just deal a couple of easy swings. The Wither is going to look like it pops up a little bit as it recognizes that I'm here, but even if I'm right up close to the Wither, I can't push it out of this position, and none of its attacks are going to damage me. I can just swing away a couple more times, and just like that, the Wither is down. That's the absolute cheesiest method of fighting the Wither on Java Edition. And once again, a reminder that since the Bedrock Edition Wither fight is so different, it's important to recognize that these methods are methods that will only really work on Java Edition. For the Bedrock Edition Wither fight, there are methods of trapping it for an easy kill, but I thoroughly recommend looking up YouTubers who cover Bedrock Edition Wither fights, because they will be able to make it a lot easier for you if you're playing on Bedrock. But as I mentioned before, you can very easily spawn in some iron golems around the Wither here, and the Wither will not be able to escape from them or deal great deals of damage to them, which will mean that the Wither fight can go very, very easily. Of course, to have the 3 blocks height in which you need to spawn the iron golem, you probably have to carve out the end stone around this, but as long as this T-shape of obsidian remains here, you should be able to summon the Wither there, and it will be trapped on this central block directly underneath the bedrock pillar that comes up through the center of the portal. Now, in terms of trapping the Wither in other formations of bedrock, I believe it is still possible in some areas of the nether ceiling to find an area that is large enough to trap the Wither, but I'm not certain of the exact requirements of that, and to be honest, doing it here in the end is the much more reliable version of that. It may also still be possible to trap the Wither in an end gateway, although I will not recommend doing that with any of the end gateways that you use to travel to and from this central island, since you'll need to remove the central portal from that in order to make sure that the Wither doesn't end up in there and teleport away somewhere different, and you're also effectively cannibalizing a useful piece of equipment for your world, whereas if you find one of these end return gateways that are positioned further out in the void and don't directly link to the ones on the central island, it's less of a risk because you're destroying something that just exists elsewhere in the Outer End Islands. And we'll cover setups like that in future episodes because they can be used for some really useful things, like, for example, farming wither roses. But with our 3 nether stars in hand, we can now make 3 more beacons. I'm going to hop back on through to the overworld, sleep for the night, and construct those beacons. Then we'll take a quick look at what wither roses can do. There we go! Feels good to craft 3 more beacons. We got all the glass and all the obsidian we could want, so the nether stars were the only remaining ingredient. One of these is going to go back over here at the Guardian farm, where, as I mentioned previously, I've set up a beacon base that is capable of hosting 2 beacons. With this second beacon activated, we can go into the first one and modify the effects it's giving us so that we get regeneration and strength from one of these, and from the other one we're looking to get resistance 2, which will give us a slightly better defense against the Guardian's Thorns effect when we're here using the farm. Not to mention the added bonus of strength means that we need to take fewer swings to dispatch these Guardians. One of the other beacons is going in my ender chest in case we need that for some other projects. I'm thinking about taking one back to the nether soon so that we can clear out some more of the basalt around our starter portal and turn that into a more formal looking nether hub. And this other beacon will go back over to the Mushroom Island with me at some stage when I need to gather more stone, because I've been using that area to set up a safe strip mine for stone whilst also mining around the edges into ocean biomes to look for a potential slime chunk to start a slime farm. But before we go, a word about wither roses. Since we haven't had access to these earlier in the series, there are great ways of getting these, which once again we will explore in the future of the series. But for now, if you step into the hitbox of a wither rose, you'll notice that the wither effect starts to take effect for only a couple of seconds. So it's nice and easy to get rid of the effect if you simply walk out of it on the other side. It's only going to deal a point or so of damage to you, as though you've been pricked by a particular thorny plant. But a useful side to this is that it also works on mobs of other kinds. It doesn't just affect the player, wither roses can also affect other mobs. Like the sheep, for example. Sorry, I feel like I'm being unnecessarily mean to the sheep, but you can inflict the wither status effect on other mobs as they walk through wither roses, which means that they will take damage and drop anything that they would drop naturally if they were killed by environmental damage. Remember that there are some drops that are exclusive to the player killing the mob, but perhaps one of the most effective and overall useful uses for wither roses is preventing mobs of certain types from spawning, because the only mobs that will spawn in the same space occupying the same block as a wither rose are mobs which are immune to the wither effect, and in the nether, that is wither skeletons. By clearing out an area inside of a nether fortress and replacing all of the blocks in that area with blocks which can support wither roses, because they can only be placed on netherrack and dirt variants, so like grass, dirt, podzol, any of that stuff, they can basically just be planted where a regular flower could grow, so you can't put them on any of these solid blocks, and in flower pots they will not deal any damage. But if you end up populating an area inside of one of these structures with a floor of wither roses, then you can guarantee that only wither skeletons will spawn inside that space, since they are the only mobs for whom it is safe to spawn inside that. So that, combined with a bit of spawn proofing in the other areas around the farm, can result in a very powerful wither skeleton spawning area. And naturally, that opens up the possibility of acquiring more wither skeleton skulls, which means we can fight the wither more times and generate more beacons, not to mention that wither skeletons are also a very useful source of coal and bones. So in future, we'll look into more ways of acquiring wither roses, so we can look into more ways of acquiring wither skeleton skulls, and so on and so on. But folks, that's where we're going to be leaving it for this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you've enjoyed this look at some easy ways to fight the wither on Java Edition. Very big asterisk, of course, but that applies to most of the tutorials here on this channel, and I hope you Bedrock Edition players will have fun finding your own ways to take on the wither. Thank you so much for watching. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you folks soon. Take care. Bye for now.